Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Helm to Tower podcast. That's right. We're not gone. We disappeared into the deep, but we've risen once again to talk about Destiny 2. Hello, I am Mike Burgess, here again to talk about Destiny 2 with my friend Alex O'Neill. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
Hello, indeed. Destiny 2. It's been a while, right?
Yeah, it's been like 4 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, has it really been 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Since the last episode. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of things have happened and haven't happened. I would say in the whole mess of time that has happened. Other video games have come out and have taken a lot of our time. A bunch of video game events we covered on our main
Mm-hmm.
Irrational Passions channel, youtube.com/Irrational Passions,
Check it out.
which you can go check out the VODs of us talking over press conferences and other things and playing stuff all there. But yeah, I think it's as always is we've continued the trend, which I think we've talked about in a couple of episodes now, unfortunately. But the weird spot the game is in currently for various reasons. The community's general reception to it either being like negative and just outright shitty to just kind of like sort of benign to everything going on, right? So it's just like it's been a weird time to like think about Destiny and like jump into Destiny, and like admittedly with just how the season is right now, with there's not a power grind, right? Obviously there's not been, admittedly for me personally, I think the story stuff up until this week, which we'll talk about with the big story thing this week, has not really been grabbing me a lot. Just like a lot of the general chases in the game just like don't feel up to snuff as they have in previous seasons or expansions and stuff for me at the very moment. But that happens sometimes in Destiny. Destiny's always had ups and downs across its many years of putting out stuff. So I'm just using the time to like play other stuff because there's tons of games that have come out and tons of things going on outside of Destiny, and I think it's always okay to recognize that and realize you can just Destiny 2 is just a video game. It doesn't have to be your life or anything crazy. Even as people here who like have like a very small channel talking about Destiny, we or even ourselves can go like, hey, let's just step away and do other things with our time.
Yeah.
And it's okay to if you're not liking what you're liking for whatever reason, just step away.
I encourage it even. I would actively encourage it.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, there's definitely been a lot of talk, I think, in the more recent times, from some prominent creators who are also doing that themselves, which we can talk about a little bit of that. Like we usually don't get too much into like the community, like content creator drama on here, and like we generally don't. But like admittedly, like there's not a lot else to talk about, and like again, we've not really been like we just said. Like I don't think either of us have been playing the game. I booted it up yesterday for the first time in 2 weeks to run a dungeon with 2 clan members because they pinged me in the Discord and was like, hey, we need people to do the dungeon. Are you down? I'd be like, sure. I ended up getting the trace rifle catalyst from doing that. So that was nice. So now I have to use it and get some kills. And then I played a little bit more today just to like, I guess I should start, maybe trying to do a couple of challenges here or there, start slowly knocking this stuff out so I don't have like a ton of stuff to like, try and like, parse through, because immediately I'll probably do this a little bit and then probably go back to Final Fantasy 16 and then come back maybe towards the later half of this season to like kind of wrap things up as we get ready for next season. Is kind of how I'm feeling personally, but I'm curious how you've been feeling about the game, and if you've been playing much at all, or where are you at?
Yeah, I played this week for sure. I check in every Tuesday to do the story like right when it goes out, because I am like, I wouldn't say I'm like thrilled with how the story is being handled right now. Mm-hmm. Just like what you have to do to get what you are getting.
Yeah.
But I am very into what the story is. Been getting back into like reading the lore books this season. This season's lore book especially is really good, I think. Really great scene in one of the chapters between the Drifter and Eris Morn.
Cool.
Kind of like following up on Season of the Haunted stuff, and setting up the Drifter kind of opening up as a character, which he has this season. And I think like all the character stuff this season has been great, and I've been enjoying that stuff. Very similar. We're in such a similar spot to Season of the Haunted, and kind of where things were at back then. That's been on my mind a lot lately. I also was pinged to run a dungeon and help someone else get the catalyst in hopes of raising my chance to get the trace rifle, and I did not get it. So
yeah, that same. My clan member was doing the same exact thing. He like pinged people he knew who had the exotic already to like, and would do a catalyst run. So two of us had the exotic already. And did that for that same reason. He didn't get it either, so
yep,
he's
big
feeling
mood.
Feeling the pain.
But I feel like the drop chance on the dungeon stuff isn't always terrible.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, like in general, though, like it's cool that stuff they have those actually in the game now, right? Like back in time when there was no drop chance increases on any end game activity, like at least there's something you can do.
My 36 runs of Vault of Glass, remember, and
yeah,
my 52 runs of whatever Deepstone Crypt, remember. So
yep, totally
for sure. And so and also 2 weeks ago I think it was, I reset my Iron Banner rank once. So I certainly played a lot then. Definitely, it was funny. Like, I remember playing on Tuesday of that week and being like, I thought this was Control, and then like playing again on Friday and it was Eruption, and then looking up why that was and finding out it was because Titans was like absolutely breaking the whole game.
Yeah,
and so they switched game modes.
Yep, it completely broke it. It was Kepri's Horn is what it was.
Kepri's Horn, that's what it was.
But they have fixed that. I wonder if they'll go back to Control for what, because this week it is still Eruption.
It's also Eruption.
It's Eruption again. I played a little bit of that today just to, because I played some that first week as well, but then I did reset rank, but I did get the cool like wolf eyes emblem or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's sick.
It's a pretty cool emblem. Yeah, so I at least worked my way to getting that, and to like say like think of it, this is the same thing today as I finished the battle pass as well, which I feel like for me. Think of like previous seasons. This is probably like the longest stretch. We've had the season's been out for a little bit over a month, and I think this is like the first time it's like taken me that long to get the battle pass out of any season so far. Because usually it's like a week and a half, and I'm already like set.
I'm level 49 too. Speaking of that, so
wow,
totally feel that. And the thing is, like last season, because we had Guardian games and Zelda coming and all these things kind of happening simultaneously, I did end up leaving a lot of challenges for the end of the season, and doing the back-to-back is so chill.
Yeah, that's also
so nice.
I tend to do that. I tend to do that already. Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of the easy ones that are just like generally I do
just play Gambit.
But exactly. Like wait till like week 9 or 10, and then just literally just play like a week worth of Gambit. It's like 5-6 matches, maybe a couple more than that in a single week, and you were done all of those challenges right away. Like that's pretty much what I've always kind of done for a lot of those, is just wait till all the weeks are up and then just kind of pile and do a bunch of them at once. And it makes it super easy to do, really.
Yeah. So that's kind of like where my mind's been at, of like, well, if you do all those challenges, you're going to hit rank 100 without a problem for sure. So I might just, I'm in that state of like, man, these playlist grinds are so not fun to me at all anymore.
It's definitely, that's like the net negative effect of not having the typical power grind. So you're not really getting anything out of doing those playlists other than you get exotics. You get exotic drops, but like me and you probably have all the exotics we need at this point, right? Like we've played so much, It's like nice to be like, okay, yeah, maybe I get like a slightly better roll of this one thing, but that thing's been sitting in my vault all this time. Do I actually need a better roll of this? Would it actually matter to use this? Maybe I'll use it in like 2 seasons from now if they decide to like buff it or change it or whatever. But like that's always such a random potential scenario, right? So it's like, who knows how that
Yeah.
goes. So like it's that's definitely been that's definitely been an aspect of like my drive to play this game right now. Like that the power grind is non-existent, so I can just kind of do the stuff I want to do, and I've already kind of done a lot of what I've wanted to do already. Like
Yeah.
I've done a decent amount of the runs of the dungeon. I'm still missing a couple pieces of armor on each character here and there, but that's not like a huge deal because it's just like kind of running it every so often. I'll get chances to get that stuff. It's not been like a super trying to get all that stuff done right away. The craftable last wish raid weapons, like I basically did the Shuro Chief farm the first week, saved up a bunch of the raid guns, and was between that run and then we did like another run of that like a week or two ago. But I was able to just craft both Shattering Bone and Apex Predators. I have crafted versions of those. So I'm
Nice.
basically already done with that raid in some ways. Like, do I need to go get it? These are the ones? Sure, I could go get them, but I don't even necessarily need it. And like, that, yeah. So it's just like that thing of like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of just technically sort of just done with Destiny besides just seeing the story stuff here and there. And maybe I'll do some Grandmasters later this season. My clan members that I occasionally run them with, or our group, have like brought it up, but don't seem like super pressed this time around. Clearly, with just the general vibe of the feelings on this game. So like I've not really been like, hey, yeah, let's do it. But I would be down to do them this season if the people hit me up for them. So it's just kind of that thing of like, okay, yeah, I don't really need to play this game right now, so I'm good.
Yeah. And I think also like that's okay.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's totally okay to just have this moment where it's like you don't need to play this game. You don't need to feel obligated. I get it from like again, like coming up, like a lot of the discussion and the challenge has come from like you said, the playlist feeling kind of just very outdated at this point. That grind and
Yeah.
that just it's been such the same grind for so long, and it's been the same kind of stuff you're just doing over and over again, and it's like, okay, and you just don't need to do it. But then you have a lot of stuff that's been even outdated longer than that, where you have like a lot. I think a lot of the discourse right now, as always, but I think like in this case is became so much more apparent, is like coming from like PvP community for this game. Like
Yeah.
they've been struggling, like, and like this stuff has been shown has like broken that even more, because there's like not really anything to chase in there as there has been. It's still not really getting meaningful like updates and changes that I think people are wanting, even though they have been giving it updates and changes and stuff. Like there's like there's like one new competitive weapon, and there was like a returning map, and I know there's a new map next season, but I think that's still just like not enough for people, unfortunately. That's like just the reality of it. And now you have the unfortunate emerging discourse of like people framing Marathon as this thing that is destroying Destiny's PvP, and that is the reason it is quote unquote abandoned. Well, I think there is like some legitimacy, and there's probably is like an underlying thing of like, yeah, they probably had to move developers onto this other project, and that's just the reality of making video games. Is they have the people, and maybe those people wanted to move on to that project, or maybe they had to because of like obligations to like develop this video game. So like that's just the reality of it. So like there is probably some truth in there, but like I think just like framing it as like that is the sole reason is like this video game is ruining this other one is like kind of just it sucks. And like especially when this like we don't even know when Marathon's coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know like how far it is in dev. Like they really did not show us gameplay in that. Like it was in some playable form, because I think they showed the Vidoc like people like doing like test sessions or whatever.
Yeah, they
But
said at
like,
the end of the Vidoc, it's entering its first alpha,
yeah,
which is early, you know?
yeah. So like this could like this could not be out next year, or it could. I don't even know. It's there's a very likely chance it's not even out next year, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe like sometime next year you get like a closed beta or something potentially, but like even that's like it's completely up in the air. So like it's hard to say like how much it's really affecting Destiny in any shape or form. And we know they're like still working on PvP stuff for Destiny 2. Like you said, they're doing it. They're making a completely new PvP map for next season. We already know that. They're gonna keep making like new weapons and stuff for trials in Iron Banner and like the base playlist. Like they're gonna keep making that kind of stuff. Like I think all the things that you can expect are still coming to PvP, but who knows how much that will evolve. And I think that is definitely like the pain point for some
Yeah.
people is like, like at this point, like, is that enough for me to keep sticking around? Especially when we're hitting an even larger point in this game with, the final shape looming of like, this is considered the final part of this saga. Like what is next for Destiny? We still don't really know yet. We'll know a little bit of that once this August, the final shape reveal happens, or at least we hope we do. I really hope they start talking about that stuff because even personally for me, like I want to know that stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's just where Destiny's at and its future and where it's going. Like is really will be good to know. Um, so I think that's like the thing that's now kind of gonna have a lot of expectations now for that showcase for sure, just for the future of this game.
Yeah, and like the marathon thing is weird, right? Like I see why Bungie honestly waited so long to announce this game.
Yeah,
So I feel like
it,
they knew that this response was going to happen
yeah,
to some extent.
yeah, and in some ways they could have waited a little longer, like
Maybe
because now they're
at this point.
we have this, but also like I'm sure there was probably other reasons that potentially they wanted to do this because they are definitely still hiring for a lot of roles
Yeah,
on Marathon and Destiny, so like them going like, hey, we're making a new big game, check this out, they can go maybe use this as a recruiting opportunity, just like see if there's interest
exactly.
and stuff. So maybe that's why they chose this point in now to do that early-ish on.
I like the sentiment that Bungie doesn't care about Destiny anymore because they've announced Marathon though is very silly and
Yeah,
people need to
it's stupid.
relax. That game isn't even out yet and we don't even have any idea of how well it's going to sell regardless of how many people might have watched the trailer, right? Like we don't even know like if that game is going to be free to play or if it's going to be like a $70 game that releases on platforms and then has additional seasons and battle passes that you pay after that point.
Right.
I definitely a thing that I've been thinking about a lot though is and it's one of those things I'm sure we all take for granted, understandably so, but you got to remember like we hear so much about burnout and like just the fatigue of game developers right now because big video games take like 5 years to make nowadays.
Yeah.
And how rough that is on any person, let alone producer, let alone director, let alone studio.
Yeah.
And Destiny has been like being made for 10 years. And obviously there was a stopgap in 2017 where we jumped to Destiny 2. But it's still very effectively similar. And even by that, Destiny 2 is 6 years old.
Yeah.
Almost. And those people that have been working on that game, especially like in PvP regards, like they probably just wanted to do something else in general. And that's okay. And I think we have to be okay with them wanting to do that because there are still people that work on Destiny that do want to see it through to the end and beyond. And there could be like a break. You know, there could be a year break where we're just getting like a year of seasons or anything after the final shape. Again, like you
Yeah.
said, we really don't know.
Hmm.
And that could be a great time to refresh the playlist or like get rid of them and put something else in their place entirely. And,
Yep.
you know, there could be a lot of big drastic changes they want to do, but they just don't want to, you know, gut this structure while it's still kind of integral to the whole. But yeah, these people like want to work on something else after working on this for a bunch of years, but that
Yep.
doesn't mean they're not obligated and want to finish the story of Destiny that they started. Like this has been probably the only time in recent memory for me where like we heard about Destiny in 2013 when it was like officially unveiled, and they're like, this is a 10-year plan, and we're at the end of that, and like it's actually happening.
Yeah.
You know what I
Totally.
mean?
Totally.
I'm
Yeah.
sure there were swerves and pivots and things along the way, and
Yeah.
like we just got
Absolutely.
like such a big story dump, and I'm so curious, and I'm sure maybe we'll find out afterwards, like when this was decided. Could have been like 5 years ago, could have been like 9 years ago, and that's like so cool to me.
Yeah.
And you know, like I also think back to that huge Kotaku piece about what Destiny was originally going to be, and then what it had to become under Activision supervision, right?
Right.
And how much that game just changed even before it came out. So yeah, like it's a big, huge thing that's been happening for so long. I'm not saying like there's a lot of great and valid and good criticism out there. And I even have some of my own that we'll talk about when we talk about like the season of the deep story and stuff. But
Hmm.
it is still an accomplishment that a lot of people have been working on for a long time. And I know they don't want to just like watch it burn over a season that people weren't really that into.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that's like the big thing. Yeah. We can definitely talk about this season as it is. Cause like, I think I think there's one more week of story stuff, but I feel like we definitely got the biggest beat this week, right? Like, I don't think there's going to be
Yeah.
too much left to the story after beyond this.
Probably just like set up for whatever's next. You know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's definitely potentially coming. But yeah, like I think like a lot of this stuff, I think that this season as a whole is getting wrapped up in the thing and like being labeled as the thing people are not liking, when I think in reality it is the larger aspects of Destiny that have just been the thing for so long, and
Yeah.
now they have like, you know, with when one of the core things is removed and you're left with something that was like integral to that piece, and was like very and has existed in this game for so long and just left on its own, and just, you know, you see its flaws way stronger than ever before. So I think it's just
Yeah.
like a bunch of things mounting up to this moment, and like, you know, like, you know, again, this stuff like this has come up in Destiny like all the fucking time. Like, you know,
Yes.
Destiny 2 launched, Curse of Osiris came out, and everybody hated it. I was not
Yep.
like as big into Destiny, but it was pretty clear, like, and that was like a very low point for the franchise, and people were like, oh no, is Destiny doomed? Destiny doomed? No, here we are fucking 6 years later, we're fine. You know,
Yep.
I think, you know, this is considered a pretty harsh point. Like, I think we had a similar feeling when it was like, what, fucking season, even like season of like like I said, like like kind of early, like late into Haunted and then into Plunder. I think a lot of people were definitely feeling, you know,
Yes.
down on the game at that time. And then, you know, then we switched around, and then it came, and then like, you know, the season after that, season of Seraph was pretty good. And then there's a lot of hype going into Lightfall, and then Lightfall was weird again. And then, you know, it's always, this game always ebbs and flows, but, you know, it has its super high points, it has its low points, and I think we're at just like a lowish point in
Yeah.
the
It's like,
scale. So it's just, that's just how this game goes, because it's always going. So it can't always be at its peak, especially when they are making a lot of like changes and have to like change all that stuff. Because like, remember, like, you know, this season is like lost its power curve, but they're doing that for a reason, because the following, like, we know next season and the season beyond this are going to be completely different like setups, and how we like approach them, and how we like get stuff, and like it's not going to be the same. Or at least that's what we're hoping, right? Is it's not going to be like
yeah.
a very similar seasonal weekly cadence as it was. Maybe that means like, maybe we're waiting multiple weeks to get story updates that potentially could come back, because that was like how some of the stuff for Destiny 2 was before this like
Yeah.
seasonal model that we have now. Maybe it could be that, and maybe people won't vibe with them going sort of back, sort of reeling back to that kind of aspect. We don't know, obviously, but some kind of shakeup is coming, and that's pretty clear from what they've told us. Coming going into next season, and even the season that's going to lead into the final shape, and then like the final shape is probably going to be an even bigger, shift post that, and whatever that's going to be, right? I think that's where we're heading. So I think that's why we kind of are also feeling this like we're at the tail end of this, and we just need to get through it to see what's on the other side, and
Yeah.
hopefully that stuff on the other side is really appealing and exciting for the future of this game, but we just don't know yet. And it's at this point it's just better to accept for what we got, and just kind of trot along and do what you got to do, or step away from the game and go play other stuff, and go or use your time somewhere else besides
Yeah. Live your life a little bit,
besides like sitting here complaining about every single flaw this video game has, that they very much know exists in their own video game that they work on every single day of their lives. So
Yeah, and there are things that are, I think, reasonable to be upset about, like the server issues,
yeah,
for example, like the
for
game
sure.
being down a lot and crashing more, and like it feels like
sure.
we're at a particularly rough spot, and we got communication like leading into the season of like, hey, we're going to change things, and then things have like gotten demonstrably worse, and we have not gotten a communication since, right?
Yeah.
So that's like totally fair, totally okay criticism, and I think it's like rightful to be upset, especially like in those instances where you only have a couple hours to play a week and the servers are down those 2 hours. Like, yeah, that's a bummer. And like how the story has been like weird this whole season, just like obviously it's character focus and all that stuff, but like it feels like nothing else is happening. It feels like Titan coming back should be a big deal, and it's like not, in a weird way.
Yeah, I definitely have been let down by aspects of this season overall. It's separate from the overall like larger Destiny fatigue for me. Like I still think this like was a decently enjoyed, like the season was fine enough. It was pretty, but I would say it's like pretty by the numbers is what I put it as.
Yeah,
and it was like, and it's like, but in that same vein, it is like disappointing because, like you said, the setup of the seeding of like Titan's back. We have like we're building up this mystery to the final shape. Asa has like this knowledge of like the stuff that we're like trying to figure out, and like these big mysteries that unfortunately Lightfall left us with. And we did get a pretty big answer this week with this cutscene that we got, but it was definitely like it didn't feel like
it just felt weird, right? It felt off.
It felt off. It felt like this cutscene was not meant for this season, but then they had to like that whatever happened with Lightfall and the larger scope of like how they're doing stuff this season, this year in general, with how they're going about it, and they're kind of piecemealing stuff out of the what feels like it should have been major parts of the expansion, are like slowly kind of being thrown off into later seasons. And I don't know if that's going to continue beyond this season or not. We don't really know, but like obviously we got like that weird Lightfall sort of introductory thing where you're literally like you do that first week mission, right, when you like go back to the Veil containment area, and you like fight like a guy, and then you finish that, and then literally now you can load up that same area each week and get like one new line of dialogue. That's like interesting stuff, but like
it's good stuff. It's like weird.
It's weird. It's weird how it's like portrayed, and they like didn't really tell you that like that existed at all. Like it was not clear that like you could go back weekly after a while. Like I think a lot of people didn't know that at like the following week, on top of like not knowing that exists is all still to a lot of people, and that's gonna be like a permanent thing in the game still somehow. So I don't know how that's gonna fit in when it just becomes like a permanent thing beyond this. And they've also stated that the big cutscene reveal that we got this week is also going to be like somehow accessible in the game beyond this, what I think is going to happen is they're probably going to like tack it into somewhere in the Lightfall campaign post this, because I really feel like that was supposed to be a part of that campaign. Like it just feels like it, like rather it was like some kind of big cliffhanger to it, or maybe it was some going to be like, like how in Witch Queen, when we got the Witch Queen reveal of Savathun being resurrected, it was like a big like midpoint moment like during the like middle of that campaign that like set the stakes for all of this and like gave us like the big reveal. Like this has that same like, gravity to it, right? Like the reveals we got in this thing where like, they like explained things that were like over that were literally like major points like across the entire like universe of Destiny and stuff in this cutscene that we got this week. And it felt like it should have been something that's just like, we didn't know what the veil was. We didn't know how important this thing was, obviously, and that was like the big question and like thing that got left out of the Lightfall thing that people were very upset about. What is the witness like truly after in making, or whatever the hell the final shape is supposed to be. Like really wasn't set up either. So them just going into this big portal at the end of the thing, and the traveler's dead. We don't know if that's actually a thing. Like what does that actually mean? Because we have our light powers. Like, like there was clearly like if this thing was in there and like was presented to us like in that, like it would have made those moments way more impactful. Like largely so, knowing that like, oh, the witness like got what he got, and now we know he wants to literally, or it wants to literally reshape the entire universe, right? So it's just
Yeah.
like, this stuff should have been. It felt very much, at least to me personally, I felt like this cutscene was supposed to be a part of that campaign. It just, for whatever reason, logistically or whatever, they had to like shift stuff around, and it just wasn't. So that's just how it happened. And now we're here, so we just got to deal with it now as it is here. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you. Actually, it was like, do you feel like this cutscene was a part of Lightfall at some point?
Yeah,
Partly because it also gives enough answer to what the veil is
yeah,
to make it more interesting to wonder more about it, right? But
hmm,
it gives enough of a solid foundation that you're like, okay, I think this is the darkness equivalent to the Traveler in whatever
right,
means it is. Which is kind of like what we had theorized at some point about, and like I even brought up how it looks like it could be paired with the Traveler with the way the roots kind of go out.
yeah, and
It kind of looks like a part of it.
yeah, either part of it or like something that is like inverse of it, so like it like can grow with it or whatever. And
Yeah.
it definitely seems like it potentially be like a part of it too, because like we saw in this cutscene. Let's just, I think we can just get into the cutscene at this point.
Hmm.
We got like you did like a very basic. You
We
literally
did a lost
you did
sector.
a lost sector. You ran a lost sector on the throne world for the weekly story mission this week, and then went somewhere and got this cutscene that literally gives you the biggest revelations in the Destiny franchise and biggest questions that we've had in the franchise. And it's like, okay, yeah, this like you said, it feels
Feels
weird.
weird.
It feels weird that this is the avenue we got this week. Okay, sure, so definitely feels off. Um, but yeah, we basically get a scene. We basically do that, and then we go back to Asa, and then she talks to us one more time and gives us this one of those kind of hand drawn animated cutscenes that's really impressive, and it literally just broke down like, yep, the witness is more than just the witness. We learned what the witness is, and is basically a amalgamation of the race that first discovered the traveler that was sprouting out of the ground, I guess.
Yeah, buried in some desert
Yeah,
somewhere.
either buried in the desert or like was like growing there or something and is coming out of the ground. Like who knows what is actually going on there. Like it was clear, it wasn't fully clear. And then they referred to it as the gardener, as that's been a lot of the talk of that, and it basically let them vastly build up their civilization into this great species, and like it's done with a lot of other species in Destiny's history that we've learned, with like the Elixni and now us as guardians and humans and stuff. But as that went along, the the race was like looking for meaning, and so they went out into the stars, and then they found this linked thing, which was the veil, which we learned like the veil like can basically connect to the traveler and like control it or something. That part wasn't fully clear. I don't know if it was more clear to you.
It seems like the link between them opens something that leads to the origins of the universe. That's kind of
Yeah,
like how they said it, which definitely like evokes time travel, and that if you were to travel to that point with the power of those two things combined, you could reshape the universe.
yeah, and that is basically the goal of this race was to in their search for like meaning is they wanted to be able to like stop chaos or control the chaotic nature of the universe and the world and all of that in the universe. And by doing that, by linking the Traveler and the Veil, they could go in and stop that and rewrite the universe as they desired. But basically that starts. That's what their that first race's goal was, and then the Traveler, I guess, was not into that somehow, or just for whatever reason, and it ran off, and it just left them, and is basically assumingly has been on the run. It doesn't fully, it's still hard to say if its own sentience has its own sentient being or whatever the hell the traveler actually is. Like that wasn't surely answered, right? But it was, like you said, like the thing gave us like the setup for more like the witness and the veil more than anything, which was like the biggest questions.
Yeah. And it
Um,
makes sense. Like it definitely sets it up so that way the origins of the traveler are left for the final shape, which
yeah,
we've kind of always thought that would be
yeah,
part of the story of the
yeah.
final expansion.
For sure. But yeah, basically in doing that, that's when the witness as we know it is created, and he basically the race basically takes their souls or whatever and conjoins them into like a single being and or entity, and that's why you see the big cloudy smoky head of death, and then they chase after it with their pyramid fleet, which we learn were also like ships that were created by this race, and that's why
Yes.
there's like a fleet of ships because it's not they're not like their own beings or whatever like they were the Traveler. I know that was like a pretty general conception originally, but it just turns out they are just normal ass or spaceships basically.
Yeah. And I like that we see the city that these progenitor creatures, which Byth has been calling them, which I like.
Yeah,
Um, it, Around the traveler, we see the pyramid built in that city,
yeah,
presumably the witnesses, and it also like there's a lot that you can take away from this. I think it's a really good origin story. Again, how we got it from doing a Lost Sector is my beef with it more than anything.
yeah,
I don't know how you could have incorporated it into the Lightfall story, but again, that feels like a story that's like of two minds and doesn't really commit to either of them.
yeah,
And I like that the idea of the veil granting this race also darkness powers. So like in some way they had the light and the dark, kind of like
yeah,
us.
yeah.
Implication that they had the traveler maybe for longer than any other race,
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't have anything to run from until after them.
True.
Um,
Yeah.
and also like explains a lot of little things like the witness tends to choose its disciples based on them being the last or the peak of their race, very reminiscent of itself.
Yeah.
It's clearly kind of like applying its trial of needing purpose to other creatures as well. Still, plenty of questions about Nezrek's origin and what he is, but that's fine. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it also like explains why the witness like put the pyramid ships around the traveler when it came to Earth, while Callus did its dirty work, right? It was making sure it didn't run away. Um, and it also like says more about the traveler choosing to stay with us, and as opposed to running like it had every time before. There's a
Right.
great lore book entry this week. I know a lot of people don't read the lore books. They're really good sometimes they're a little bit more just ancillary,
Yeah.
and I understand like not necessarily being as into them, but this one was about Zavala and Ikora talking about basically this revelation, And there's just a really great line that Zavala says of, I always thought the traveler was coming to uplift us, but it was coming to ask us for help.
Right.
Which I think like really changed my perspective on the traveler in a really cool way, um, as a lot of this does.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I would have liked Witch Queen style cutscenes of the council meeting and talking about this,
Yeah. Right.
about, because this is so important than I would like reading that in a lore book. But
Yep. For sure.
I get the, how everything's kind of split up across everything. But yeah, really interesting. I don't know if you probably don't listen to any Dungeons and Dragons podcasts, Mike, but
Nope.
anybody out there that's listened to, very well known, The Adventure Zone, their first campaign, Balance. Very slight spoilers for that, but the antagonist of that campaign is known as the Hunger. Very similar origins to the Witness, in that it's like a multiverse story at some point, and it was like a whole plane of universes that came together to create essentially a sentient universal plane that goes and devours other universal planes, of people
Mm-hmm.
that found what the answer to life was and were dissatisfied with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they became a hunger for more, to the point where it became something else entirely. Um, and it's a cool origin, and I think the Witness is like obviously a little bit different than that, and a little bit more kind of solitary, right? It is like this one thing as opposed to this giant thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it moves all the ships, the pyramid ships, as its own, um, and it definitely leaves my endless plea for a new enemy race of like potential shadows of the Witnesses race, to be enemies and stuff in the future, which would be cool. But yeah, cool origin. I'm very into it. I like this aspect of sci-fi a lot, and it definitely feels appropriate for the kind of clashing of ideals that we're getting to.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Again. Yeah. Again. Like we've been saying. Like it was a really cool cutscene. It answered a lot. It set the stakes for like where we're going. Right. Of like, okay, yeah, now we know why they went into the traveler, and like, clearly that's a bad thing to have our total universe written, and probably wiping us from existence more or less, because
Mhm.
we are probably very much now, especially having been fighting his fights in so long and having this more direct conflict with him more recently. We were probably seen as this chaos in this universe that is like, set off so many things. So it makes sense why there's that stake in it now, and that now it is, and now we have now also known, like, now we have that goal of like, yep, we're going in there, we're going in the traveler.
Yep.
That's the setup now. Now we need to figure out how to get that, and Asa did say at the end of this, like after that scene, like, okay, now we just need to how to get in there, and she does know that. So like I'm assuming that's going to be the little last bit here, this week, or this coming week. We'll see if we actually get that answer, or maybe they say that and maybe something else crazy happens next week, and then that gets left a little bit maybe to as a big point in another season potentially. But we'll see if they give us that answer. I'm kind of hoping they give us that answer, and then the next season is like, all right, we know what we need to do. Let's like start working towards that. Like we're working towards like this assault, and maybe this like assault to get into the traveler and fight this maybe starts next season, and then maybe the other season, because we know they're like a little bit, right, of like, we saw Ikora with the ghost of Cade in that little teaser, so she's inside the traveler. Are we also in there somewhere, or is like did this like maybe we figured out how to get in there and then it all goes bad, and then we're just
Maybe
left
the
to
the
do
end of
something.
next season, Ikora gets in, and then it takes us a whole other season to follow her. That's kind of my expectation.
Sure, that could be a cool moment as well. Um, yeah, definitely just gonna we'll have to see more will be obviously revealed at that big August showcase for what that sees. We'll see that season, and what's going on with the final shape, and have some stuff revealed there, um, for sure. Um, But yeah, overall, like I think in general, like this season more than any just did not, in terms of how it delivered the story each week, was not as enjoyable as I felt like previous seasons were.
Yeah.
Just because like we did, because like a lot of the like this season still had some like character in interstitial moments, right, of like having these moments where it's like I walk up and like Zavala and the Drifter are talking to each other actually in the helm, and like having these moments, but it's like they're kind of they're usually those are always some of the really good moments, and they are, but I think just unfortunately because of the gravity of like having all of these questions, and like they were very much overshadowed by like, okay, we're finally gonna get answers for this thing that was so, that we did not get, that we should have got in the expansion, and now we're getting them now. So now like it's kind of overshadowing a lot of these other cooler things, like you were saying, like a lot of cool things in the lore, or like these little interstitial moments in the weekly things where it's like, oh yeah, we're getting more like Saint trying to like help try and be like a helpful figure to Sloane, who's been literally stuck in darkness by herself and being manipulated, and having Shiva Wrath yell at her this whole time. Like it's pretty awful stuff going on, and like they
Yeah.
get into that, and it is interesting, but I think it was always overshadowed by like trying to get this information about like the Veil and the Witness, from Asa, and a lot of that in of itself just amounted to like this. We would get the do the same weekly thing each week, go to thing, deposit the coral, and then she would give you this like very vague kind of sentence of stuff, and it'd be like, okay, sure, whatever this means, all right. And then obviously now we have this big cutscene, and it was all kind of referring to a lot of the things that were revealed in this. So it was
Yeah.
just kind of very much like it felt not as great having this like building up each. It did not feel like each week had like an interesting build compared to some of the other seasons we've had, where like it felt like each week was kind of like building on to like a bigger moment. I think they just the storytelling stuff, just left a little bit to be desired, for the
Yeah.
season, unfortunately.
Someone who plays a lot of JRPGs, it's like drawing out the exposition at the end, the
Right.
exposition dump effectively over the course of 9 months as opposed to
Yeah,
9 hours.
for
Uh,
sure.
which is, I get it. Like they're in this weird spot where they want these campaigns and stuff to be these big things, and those things take time, so they just got to fill those gaps.
Yeah,
But it is like it takes a toll on the story as a whole when you do stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious if that's going to be something they reapproach later, as like have maybe still going to have like these big expansions, but maybe not, right? And maybe they just have these, they make seasons like the thing, and they make them bigger and more elaborate, and like kind of fill in those moments and have like story being told across a year, like rather than having like the big moment being built up to, and then having all this stuff, and maybe everything is kind of reliant on that being really good, because obviously you can see the pros and cons of that with like the Witch Queen and the build up to that, and then you have the Lightfall and the build up to that, and then it kind of falling down the hill. So like I wonder if that's going to be something they reapproach, right, rather than just like the seasonal structure being the thing they kind of upend, but just how they present Destiny as like a ongoing video game. I wonder if that's going to be like even maybe if they're going to change that stuff entirely, right? Like who knows,
Yeah.
how big they could go, beyond the final shape. But again, it's all very much wait and see still, um, for that stuff.
Yeah, I think the sentiment is like, while I understand, I think we both do, like the doom and gloom and the weird feelings of things. Like, I don't think it's enough to the point, and we're at a point where it's like we don't need to burn this whole thing to the ground right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like it is, be critical, be respectful, and also like use your time is the best way to send a clear message, right? If you're into the story still, show up for the story and then peace out, kind of like we've been doing and stuff. And I think that's okay. because I think that sends a much clearer message. Playtime sends a much clearer message than anything else
Sure.
in Destiny 2. And there's also like the whole conversation about transactions and the season price going up and all that.
Yeah.
Uh, we kind of already mentioned that, like how we weren't thrilled about season price going up, and how I said there was almost certainly going to be no way to buy exactly how much the season costs, and
Yep.
there isn't.
None of that.
Uh,
None of that
and
exists. Yeah.
still a bad idea. It was before they did it, and it is still after they've done it.
Yeah.
Um, and I like folks like us, it doesn't affect because we buy the collector's edition,
Yeah.
and we get the dungeon key and we get the season pass regardless,
Mm-hmm.
for much cheaper now. But the most vulnerable parts of the community, I think, are the people that suffer the most.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like some of it's also like, also tough for like a new player trying to get into the game, right? Like I think
Yeah,
that's definitely a difficult thing. That's something Destiny has always been very had a very tough time with, and maybe that's like somewhat intentional because they are building to this big final moment in the series, and then they're gonna have like a big sort of they're gonna move on to it, potentially not maybe move on to a new thing, but like move into a new direction
yeah,
with the game, and that's like a better opportunity for them to like think about how they onboard people and like make it like a smarter way to like bring people into the game as it is. um it's just it's really really interesting. I have no idea how they're going to figure this stuff out. And yeah, a lot of this like transactions and Destiny's model of how you pay for stuff, or get it, and it being free to play in really really large quotation marks. A lot of that came into head on top of all of this other kind of discourse that's been surrounding it, because a big content creator known as Astacross put out a video that was straight up just labeled as "Is Destiny 2 has become a microtransaction hell?" And this video kind of just exploded. Like it was one of those things where it kind of blew up in the Destiny circles, but then got kind of picked up by a lot of people who are not really in the Destiny universe, like big creators, like freaking Asmongold literally has a reaction to this video, and he's like a very big streamer, and he is like considered the one of the big reaction people in general in content creation.
hmm
Regardless if you think of him, if you're not really into his stuff or whatever, he's like really well known, and that's going to spread that video in a pretty major way. And like on top of that, literally, I think I saw like almost every other Destiny creator made some kind of reaction to this video just because it exploded. I think it got I think it's by this point probably gotten over 1 million views by now. But I think
it
with, but
has.
I
Yeah,
think within like the first 3 days, it almost hit that already. So like it just kind of exploded, and really brought this conversation up because he brought up a lot of points. Again, like we brought up the point we just did now with Destiny, with its like weird seasonal pass structure. It's weird, like it has 8,000 different kinds of bundles on all these different stores, and what do you even buy to get started? Is this stuff actually like should this stuff actually be in this many bundles? Like it doesn't, some of it doesn't make sense anymore at this point.
why is the Forsaken pack still a thing?
Why
It's
yeah
still $20.
why does this exist? Why can't they just, if they're going to increase prices on the seasons, that's fine, but like why not just increase it to a point where you can just include the dungeons in those seasons as a purchase with those seasons, especially when you have a season like this where we get Ghost of the Deep, and it's a really really good dungeon and is also very integral to the season's story. Like, and this the fact that this season is going to disappear, and then these dungeons will at least exist. And I guess you give some story, but you won't really have the full context of those things because now they are so important to this specific season they're dropping in. Like they've now done 2 dungeons in a row where like they were kind of tied into the story of the actual seasons going on, and it's kind of been like a little bit like, okay, like that's a little strange to have these be so wrapped up in this particular story beat, but then like not have these story beats that fill this out available to anybody to like know that that was a thing. and just
Yeah.
kind of adds to that extra confusion of like, having all these extra things to buy, like having to know all of these extra things that were like going on in the game at the time to like get kind of interested and involved and like know what this is about. It just adds to that layer. It's just a lot of weird stuff, right?
Yeah, I think there's, just to put my 2 cents out there, there's a lot of hyperbole in that
Yeah,
Ask
yeah,
video for
yes,
sure.
because definitely something I was going to bring up of like a point I definitely don't agree with is like he definitely had tried to make points of this game being pay to win, and that's such a nebulous thing with this video game that like doesn't
Yes.
really make sense to me, especially when you have things like how a lot of people treat this game matter of factly, because there's a lot of people who are very down on how it quote unquote respects the time you put into it, and like I do agree with some of those like kind of criticisms that do come out about the game, but like the fact that like people use that as an excuse to like immediately find the most broken ways to like go at this game and just like find all these things and then get really shitty at Bungie when they have to fix them, because that's not how the intended way to play this game. And then the people do these crazy things and then then do that so much in the initial week and then get burned out on the game because they played it a weird way, and then
Yes, exactly.
having that come back and
No,
somehow
no
turn that back around,
accountability.
having that some turn around back on Bungie and be shitty towards them when maybe it was not an intentional thing. Like like you said, accountability and like for your own stupid things. And like like I said, I totally did the Shuro-Chi cheesing murder her a bunch the first season when the thing was on thing. You could totally farm that encounter super fast to get a bunch of drops. I did that and got the weapons super craftable fast, so I didn't have to like try and run that raid like 2 or 3 times a week to like try and get better drops or do whatever over like weeks and weeks or even like months and months. Because I didn't want to gauge the game. That's totally fine to like do. I think it's totally fine to do that. But then again, to turn around and then be like, well, I did all this stuff and now there's not much to do in the game. Bungie doesn't, Bungie's not doing anything in this game. What are you making me do this for? Like,
It's so funny because now I'm like the opposite, where I've like held off on getting all the Last Wish and all the God, Root of Nightmares. I always think Ron, and I'm like, what does that mean?
Ron.
All the Ron crafted borders, where like I got all of the other ones, especially like Vow of the Disciple. I got all that in that first season that was out, and also the Deepstone Crypt ones because I'm a sicko.
Mm-hmm.
And I've now not done that, so I always have something that I need to get done in Destiny as like a reason to go back. It's so funny how like that's totally flipped for me, basically.
Yeah, right.
Because I do want to get all those weapons crafted, like every single one. Yes, even the ones I don't want to use because I like doing that. It's like a thing that I like, a box I like checking.
Yeah, it's the as another recent addiction you've grabbed. It's the Pokemon effect. I've heard some people call it, like, which is
catch 'em all.
Which is a totally a fair comparison, because it feels good to just have that collection be done. And they've in some ways made it easier, but not so easier by adding in those new harmonizer things, which I think in concept are a great addition, but how they're currently implemented is bad, right? Like having only 6 you can use on, and you have to get them through the battle pass. And that's the only way you can get them right now. I think you get 3 on the free track, and then you get 3 more if you have like the paid track, which I always, that's always the thing I also forget, admittedly, is there is like a free battle pass track every season for the game. But that's just a standard video game thing.
Yeah, and that was like what I wanted to bring up too, like how that, Astacross used like an example of like the immortal potentially being crafted, and how it would be pay to win in an instance where you could buy all your season pass levels, immediately get that crafted by farming a bunch of drops. And it's like, I understand where you're coming from, but this is exactly why the implementation of this thing is so weird and wonky, because like they wanted to avoid that happening, and they don't want it to feel like that. And it was funny, like I was like super butthurt about there only being 6 until I thought about it like that, of like, oh yeah, you could just like get a very good crafted weapon pretty much right away,
Yeah.
if there was
Right.
kind of another way to do it. And so that's why they're eking this out in such a way as to
Yeah,
make
because
it.
absolutely, especially how like people play this game, right? Like we
Yes.
hoard on to like tons of materials for like no for like for some good reasons and some
For
not.
hypothetical
Yeah,
reasons.
and some of it is totally hypothetical. Some of it is just like it makes the game like smoother and more enjoyable to play in some aspects for sure. Like I
Yeah.
definitely feel that with like I have a bunch of ascendant alloys or shards and things like that. So when I like do like quick masterworking and stuff, I can just do that and like not have to like go through this process of like trying to do a bunch of grinding to do that. I already did
If
it a
anything,
bunch
they're
before.
enabling that more with the change in the glimmer and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I think they've been slowly building up better ways to like removing currencies that like allow you to do a little bit more of that, but like also trying to like make you spend more of certain kinds of currencies. So I think they're like still figuring out like they're trying to be like a little friendly, but also like still kind of fair. Like they're very precious with like a lot of their weird currencies and economy stuff. So like, and I'm sure it's like tricky to like figure out because there are so many different variations of people coming in and out of the game where you have people who like were playing back in Forsaken and that there was some kind of weird legendary shard glitch farm. We've seen the memes and the moments in this game, right? And we've been around long enough, right, to see these moments where it's like, oh, you see on Twitter there's a legendary shard glitch, you better do this right now before Bungie patches it because they're gonna patch it faster than some weird super probably potentially more complex like weapon bug whatever. And you see, you'll go into the tower and see like 15 people just like standing around, standing in front of Ikora and seeing my feed of like people getting drops and like a billion exotics, for like and just seeing that as soon as you load into a tower because people can do that. And like like that's the thing, they have to account for people who are like doing that insane bullshit, but also like somebody who's like literally loading up the game for the first time and are like what the fuck is an ascendant shard or
Yeah.
what the how do I
What
get
is blue armor?
what is how do I get legendary shards? So I can tell you as somebody who plays this 9 years, like even I don't know like a good method to do that without those stupid bullshit like glitches, right? Because it's just like it's
Just play the game.
just play the game, I guess, and you'll accrue some and figure it out. you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I'm sure it's challenging for them as developers to like figure out the stuff and like why they have to like initially probably be stingy with like especially something as powerful as this is like giving you much faster tracks to getting these weapons crafted and craftable, and like they did last season where they made it so like you could basically apply the ability, the power you can of enhancing a weapon like it is a crafted weapon and like applying that to like an end game piece of loot. And they said they wanted to like eventually put that on all weapons more or less that wouldn't be craftable or whatever, and whatever that means for the future of crafting and stuff. So like clearly they're like starting small with these things so they can build upon it and see how people reuse it and mess around with it and do things so that way they can potentially try and mitigate when they put it out again in its full form, and then like people find these crazy exploits to just to have infinite things like that. Like that's been a pretty natural thing with Destiny, is always like when they introduce a new pretty big system that's going to be like a more like fundamental thing you're interacting with on the day-to-day or weekly basis or whatever. They always kind of start off a little bit small, or like so it's that way they can build upon it and see how people react to it and get data from it and stuff. But yeah.
We can't take those things of them experimenting with stuff and blow them out of proportion and make it like this is turning Destiny into a pay to win. Again, what does that even mean in the context of a primarily PvE game? Might I remind everyone? We can't
100%.
we can't react like that and then in the same hand beg them to change things that have been problems for aeons, right? They are contradictory concepts, I think, and you gotta understand that they're like trying to test out systems with a very, very, very invested player base. That's very prickly also, and see how they go and how we actually use those things before then like opening the floodgates like people are worried is constantly happening all the time,
Yeah,
right? Like
for sure.
just chill out a little bit. I think it'll help. I get the fear, right? I do also agree with the sentiment that it's like definitely free to try, not free to play.
Yeah,
Almost everything that is like big in Destiny is behind a paywall. Obviously, there are things that aren't, but like effectively, yes. Like you
yeah,
can't have two subclasses without paying something, and like that's the whole game ball to me, right?
yeah,
Is building
absolutely.
in
Yeah,
subclasses.
this yeah, absolutely. They should have really switched up their wording and calling it free start like a long time ago. But I guess like they can't really now. And like I get it, like free to play sounds a lot better than free to start. But like
Yeah,
the true reality is that this game is free to start. Like you can jump in and do that little introductory quest, and now like Guardian ranks can help you a little bit and like teach you some things. But like the reality is you're gonna be able to go do strikes. You can do Crucible. You can do Gambit. You can do Dares of Eternity, and like you have a couple raids accessible to you, and I think one dungeon. But like in reality, like as a brand new player, you're not going to be probably going into any of those like dungeons or raids anytime soon. Even if you are like somebody who's like maybe more knowledgeable of like MMO type games and adjacent games to Destiny, right? So like you
yeah.
have more knowledge about that stuff. Like you know you can do those free ones, but in reality, like you gotta go. You gotta buy stuff. You gotta buy expansions. Maybe you don't have to buy everything all at once, but you gotta buy stuff to like get the full range of the game. Um, but yeah,
I think we're long past, and my 2 cents on it is like we are way past them needing to put out like a true expansion bundle like Elder Scrolls Online has been doing, like Final Fantasy 14 has been doing,
yeah,
where you just buy one thing that's $60 and it gets you everything up until this point.
yep.
Especially if you're gonna nickel and dime people on the seasons, you got to put that out. I really think we're like that was it made it so
I think
accessible
they had that at one point with Destiny 2, right? Like I think it
up
was
until I think it was Beyond Light had that,
yeah,
and then ever since then you've had to buy things piecemeal,
yep,
and it's just not the way to do it. It's like the only reason I was able to get into Final Fantasy 14 when Shadowbringers was out for 6 months. I spent $60 on that. I got Stormblood, I got Heaven's Sword and Realm Reborn all bundled in one with that. And there is a annual or a monthly subscription fee, a $15 a month fee for that game. But I didn't have to like figure out and authenticate all these different things that I had to do. I just bought one thing, paid the month, signed up for the monthly subscription, and I'm in, and I'm good to go until Endwalker comes, until the next thing, right? And that's just the way to do it. And we're so past that with this game. I definitely
yeah,
feel that.
yeah.
So
It should have been. It seems like a no brainer thing to do, but like it's been so long. They're whatever reasoning they have. Like I don't care what it is at this point. Like it should have been done. Like I don't care
yeah,
if they have some weird reasoning why they haven't done some kind of big bundle thing. But like yeah,
sure they make more money otherwise, but again, if you're gonna raise the price on season to season content, implement stuff like dungeon keys, I think that stuff isn't bad on its own, but you got to make
right.
the process simpler for folks coming in.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. Um, what else is there? Yeah, like again, yeah. I don't think this game. I don't think Destiny's pay to win. It's just it doesn't. It's something that doesn't click with me. Like yeah, like again, like you said, I see the point Cross is trying to make. And I think the larger kind of thing he was trying to do with the video, where you kind of it started the video off with this really old Dado video in Destiny 1 talking about basically like the slippery slope effect of this kind of stuff of like hey, they do this one thing and see how it goes, and if people like maybe some people are complaining about it but don't make it, or like but not enough, and we're in and people are spending money on it, then that's all that really matters, and then they can just kind of keep piling things on and doing things, and like they definitely like the status of Destiny transactions and things have definitely gone up. But I also think that's also not just a Destiny thing, but it is also a video game thing. Like
Yeah,
video games in general, especially the main games that like Destiny is like centered aside as these ongoing large like service games. Destiny has a multiplayer component and is a pretty prominent multiplayer component. I think like the PvP side is long seen as neglected, but it is just as big of a player base in some regards as the PvE player base. You see a lot of metrics like that, and again, I agree a lot of with like the rough sentiment. As much as I do not give a crap about PvP, there's a point in time with this video game I would have straight up just been like, I don't even want this in the video game. Like I could just do without it completely. But at the end of the day, I totally understand. There's a lot of people like that this is the reason they come to this game, and they still do it after all this time, and this time where they feel very neglected, and don't get a lot of stuff in the game, and a lot of things are also like detrimental to the game. Like a big point of the tumultuous time in the game right now is also bring up by another big content creator, Jake, essentially like having this he took a clip out and he basically had like 3 matches of trials in a row where he got cheaters in the game, and cheaters were still popping up, and they were pretty blatant about it. Like it was literally some guy like flying through the arena and was like had infinite ammo, infinite heavy, and was able to like instantly do it within like as soon as the match started. And he just got like fed up and like frustrated of just like how can they not have something in place to like not recognize this kind of stuff, even on top of all the anti-cheat they've already been doing? Like it's something that's so like blatant and obvious. Like how do they not have stuff like this? I pay from the PvP perspective of people, they have to to essentially play PvP or play trials specifically. Remember, you have to pay for the expansions and stuff to like get into it. So he's basically like making the case of like, hey, I have to pay $100 every year to like play this mode and do the things that I want to do in this game. And like you can't even keep up with these things. You can't release new maps. You can't do this or that. Like from his perspective, it's like, yeah, he got fed up with it, and straight up for like the first time. And I don't know the specifics, but I know like Grenadier Jake is like, he is just as much an OG like creator, like in the vein of like Dados and Aztecrosses, where like every week he jumps in and does trials. He's always been that creator. Like that's just what he's done. That's been his thing. He's pretty prominent in that PvP space. There's always been a thing where like if you go on Twitch on the weekends when trials is up, he is number one in that slot. Like he has all the viewers and carrying people through trials every weekend. And that's always been the case through like the good and the bads of Destiny, and when trials has existed in Destiny, and when it hasn't. And like he finally hit a point where he said like, yep, I'm doing other stuff now. I want to spread out and do different content and go into variety. I'm gonna take a chance and do this stuff, which is like potentially scary for like some of those creators, because that's like there's a lot of creators who like specialize in a game and live and breathe that game. So their livelihood is based around the where the game is like seen and sought after. So when Destiny's doing good or bad, like they're doing good or bad, right? So like it's just as much on them to do that. So like for him to step out of there and just be done with that, like that I think that is, it's not like sitting here like ringing the death bells and putting the game in the coffin or whatever. It's not nothing crazy like that, but I think it is telling when you have somebody of his stature and how much he dedicated to PvP and specifically trials, and like he is like kind of done and ready to kind of move away, at least for now, and try other stuff and push away. Like I think that shows like, okay, the game is not going to die. It's not the end of the world, but like there's clearly things that need to be figured out and addressed, and I'm sure they are working on stuff inside Bungie. It's just that now we're just in a weird spot.
Yeah, it's just a weird sentiment, and keep in mind, I think we're all, Bungie included, just feeling that weight of 9 years on our shoulders, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a lot. It's a lot to be playing any one game. We've talked about a lot. I'm not an MMO person. This is the most and longest I've ever played any video game ever.
Yeah, on a consistent basis. Yep.
On a consistent basis 100%. That is like ever evolving. Like I played Final Fantasy 14. I beat Endwalker, and I literally like uninstalled the game, and like I've taken like a 12-month sabbatical at this point of just
Mm-hmm.
like, like I got what I needed out of that. I'm really happy with the experience I had as drawn out. You want to talk about a game that's drawn out, like, oof. In good and bad ways for sure. But like this is like a different thing. It's like a live service game that I'm keeping up with. It's one of the first live service video games outside of MMOs, right? Like
Yeah.
you gotta. There's so much weird stuff that goes into keeping up with D2, and it's been going on for so long,
Mm-hmm.
just so long, that it's just you gotta have some of that humble pie, the hard truths as Dado calls them,
Yeah.
every now and again, and just remind yourself. And that's why at the top of this we talked about how good it is to take breaks.
Yep.
uh
Mm-hmm.
you know that I can come back in, because I looked this week after I ran the dungeon. I was just looking at the season pass. It's like 61 days left of the season. It's like we
Yep.
got plenty of time left to grind out all this bullshit. It
Mm-hmm.
ain't going anywhere. At least not for a few months. There's always the FOMO stuff
Yeah.
and all that is an ever evolving conversation. But yeah, it's okay to feel the weight of that huge time in Destiny
Yeah.
every now and again.
And take a step away. Like you brought up Dado. Like he literally put out a video that was like, not I feel like a little, like I think it was like last week or maybe the week before, where like he was basically talking about like what he's thinking about beyond Final Shape, and he basically just said it. He's like, I'm gonna, once Final Shape is out, I'm taking a break,
Yeah.
like a bigger break from this, and like I'm gonna come back. I'm probably still gonna play Destiny, whatever shape it is, whatever it ends up being, but I'm also probably not gonna be covering it as much and figuring it out. And that's like, yeah, I get it. Like he's been doing it since the start, even before the game was out. Like he's been covering it. Like I would not be surprised if he's not the only big creator that has been doing Destiny for this long that like has a similar feeling to that, And again, I don't think that's I don't think that's like to paint the game in a bad light, right? Like I think, like you said, you do something for so long, you cover a game, your life. This game is your life for so long. They were at the lowest points in the franchise, the highest points in the franchise. They were a part of it in some way, shape, or form, and that has its own pros and cons to it. You're attached to something, and that's your life for 10 years or more. And like, what is it? What is it now? What do I have to show for it? Like, was it worth it, or do I do more, or do I do less? And that's like a whole, whole can of worms to open, and existential life stuff, and things that they're all figuring it out. And that's like, I think that is just happening when you have like this a penultimate moment with this game of just like it finally being like, this is the end of this saga, and what does that actually mean for a lot of various things. It's gonna be a crazy time in general for this game, in a good way, or in like a not the best way, like we're kind of seeing right now with a lot of people having this up and coming, and it finally kind of dawning on them that like, oh yeah, this is kind of potentially it. And like, where do I see myself, or like, is is this going to get better for me by doing this and sticking with it, or is it worth it, or is it going to be something else? Like, I don't know. And I
Yeah.
think everyone's just trying to figure that out. So it's crazy times.
Yeah. It's weird for us, like having kind of just gotten into the game.
Yeah.
The game of covering it, not the game itself.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, yeah. Like, yeah, we got into it. I got super into it, but I would say by right before Beyond Light came out, and then like that whole shift in ebb and flow, right? And then now, yeah, when Witch Creek came out, I just kind of said like, yeah, I don't like when that came out, and I was still really into Destiny and felt really into it. We wanted to start covering it, and then me and you both got super into it through these past couple of years. And I still like the game a lot. I don't think we'll try and continue it whatever shape it takes. We'll see how it goes. You've already seen like we kind of take it more chill here though, like where we have not had an episode of the podcast this like for the past couple weeks, but that's because we haven't really been playing it, and like there's you want us to sit here like have these kind of weird talk conversations every week. Not really. Like I personally don't want to have these.
Right.
Want to sit here and
It's
talk
good
about.
to have them.
It's good to have
not,
them.
Let's not do it every week.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I don't want to like have this week. Like yeah. If we've done podcasts, it's like this week would have been like, oh yeah, let's talk about that Dado video, I guess. Oh yeah, let's talk about this video. Like now we're just talking all about it at once and having to talk about it. I'd rather have all of this together than just like because there's not much going on in the game, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it was me. It was me that messaged you this week and said like, "Hey, we should do Helm this week so we can talk about this stuff."
Yeah,
and like that happens every now and again, and it's like that's why like we have a good time here and we keep it chilling. We have other games that we cover on our other main thing.
Yep.
And Lord knows I've been doing that for 13 years.
Yeah.
Next week. So and not necessarily, I'm not like holding a goblet of fame right now. So you got to know I'm in it for the love of the game, not for the money and fame.
Yeah,
most certainly. So and plus, like without getting too into it, like a lot of stuff is going on in my personal life right now that people will be privy to probably in the near future. But one of those things is me moving. That is like part of why like there hasn't been a post like a Destiny column since Season Deep came out, right? Like I took a long time with my review, then I took a break, and then Zelda came out, and then I was like, all right, time to start talking about Season Deep. And what I've been researching and things that like I've been wanting to write about has been a lot of like what we're talking about now. But then like I moved and it's like, well, I want to do a video with every one of these posts, so I'm just gonna wait until I moved and kind of settled. So and you got to remember like real life happens to everyone that we talked about here, like everyone that worked at Bungie, everyone that still works at Bungie, Dado and Aztecross, and like Aztecross just had like a second kid, like there's a lot of stuff that happens.
And there are a lot of them are doing what's best for them. Like I've seen like Aztecross doing like a bunch of different not Destiny stuff. He's been doing a ton of Diablo coverage. He's been playing Final Fantasy 16 also, and like they have been exploring other stuff, and I think that's like good for them to like do that. They're doing it just as much as like they're doing it more than ever, which like I like is not necessarily a bad thing and like a terrible thing for Destiny, because like at the end of the day, like when there's new Destiny stuff, of course they're gonna go see it because they love the game. They say it, but I think like again it just gets wrapped up in this weird struggle with there's people who just want to shit on Destiny and that's just what they do, and like there's tons of people in other gaming communities and just like they just want to complain about something or be shitty about it and do whatever because they just can't. They just need to turn this stuff off and go do other things and figure stuff out in their own lives or whatever the fuck. But anyway, this you can clearly tell we did not really like have like a full plan for this episode because we've just been off the cuff talking about a lot of this stuff, but it has been good. Yeah, like this is something we like definitely was
like cathartic.
Been on our minds about this game, and like we still love the game. We're gonna I don't know if we're gonna have an episode next week, but we're gonna be back at some point to still talk about Destiny 2. When the game picks up with new content and new stuff, we're going to be here until they tell us hey, Destiny, we're done with Destiny.
It's dead.
Get the fuck out. It's actually dead.
We can finally call it a dead game.
It's actually a dead game because we don't want to make it anymore. That's what Bungie's going to tell us one day, and hey, that's going to happen, and we'll have to do that. Whether that's the end, that's this time next year, which probably isn't going to be, or it's when I'm like I don't know. I don't even want to think about when I'm, when I'm like 40 years old and trying to still do this or some shit. But who the fuck knows? Destiny. Who the fuck knows? You know what I mean? Like we don't.
Trust me, I've wrestled with that reality quite a few times.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Exactly. So hey, at the end of the day,
take a break.
Take a break. It's been nice. I won't lie. It's been nice, honestly, in some of these more recent weeks to just like not think about this game at all. Even for myself, totally. When it's just like, all right, I'm just don't have to think about this game. I don't have to think about the grind. I don't have to think about this or that or what. If I need to do these things, I can just not worry about it. I'm just gonna go do what it's like, play other games, big or small. I'm thinking about it right now. I'm thinking about it like, hell yeah, I'm done. When I'm done this, I'm probably going to go eat dinner and play some Final Fantasy or some shit, play something else and just have a good time.
Exactly.
And that's totally okay. And everyone should do it.
Yes, agreed. Fully endorse.
But yeah, I don't know.
But The Witness, you know,
The Witness, hey, he can fucking wait. Okay, you can just do this. So let's see. I don't think there's. I think we've talked
we
enough.
covered
about
it. I checked
stuff.
the TWAB. The TWAB was like the short, or excuse me, the Twid.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
also
It
haven't
did-
talked
it-
about
it-
the
it
Twid
did.
at all.
It did change to this. They changed it to This Week in Destiny, which like I don't know. It's fine, I guess. Like it just definitely it does not have the roll off the tongue TWAB did, which it is. But I understand they are now going to be a 2-game studio. I would have preferred. Well, I don't think it would work as well, but for reason TWAD came to mind This Week at Destiny, which I guess doesn't make as much sense. So I guess that's what I did it. But also,
I think they could have just done a TWAB and a TWAM. I don't think.
yeah, that's true.
Or a TWIM.
Twin, yeah.
Or I guess This Week at Bungie is that's why it was TWAB. So
Yeah.
TWAD and TWAM.
Twam.
Twid and
Twim, Twid and Twim.
We're probably going to get a This Week in Marathon, you know, at some point in the future, and that doesn't sound great either.
Twim. Yeah, Twim's a weird one as well, for sure. So,
but yeah, the Twid this week was like the shortest. TWAB that there ever has
probably one
been.
of the shortest things they've ever done. But they did mention that there is going to be like some kind of mid-season patch again, like they did last season. It's going to be sometime in July. So I'd be curious to see like what that entails, because that last one had some pretty cool stuff in it. So I'm curious what that'll be. And obviously, I think we're going to get the next week is going to be the tail end of the story for this season. And I think like a week or two after that. It might even be. I don't think it's the week right after next week, but Solstice is coming up. They did give us dates for this stuff. At one point,
August?
No, it's July. That it is in July. I remember that. I just don't remember the exact date it was in July. Let me see if I can try and quickly.
July 19th. Does that sound right?
Potentially.
No, that was last year. Never mind.
Let me see. Maybe I can see it on, because they also the website I used to use to like find like out what dates were for stuff. No longer can get access to the stuff to see the dates anymore, unfortunately, because they changed a bunch of back end stuff. They did in one of the I think it was still when it was TWAB. They gave us like a, hey, this week is this week is that. Let me see if let me see if I can quickly find it here. Scrolling through some of these.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. But yeah, I mean that's the holiday for this, and then we'll have the showcase at the end of this season.
Okay, yep. So I found it. You were right. It is July 18th.
Okay.
Yeah, because because at least all the things they had in here. They had Grandmaster start early June 13th, which has already happened. That's right. Because Grandmasters are available, but it's not like the node. So like technically you can do the weekly ones and start working at them. I admittedly have not done any of that, and I'm just gonna still wait for that node. It's fine. I'll just do them all at once or try and do a bunch of them in quick succession. And I'm totally cool with that. But yeah, July 18th. So that's like 2 weeks from now, or no, it's 3 weeks. Or no,
3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks, basically.
3 weeks from Tuesday.
Yeah, so we'll probably have like a story thing. Well, that's right. One other thing that did pop up in the game that I completely forgot, and admittedly, I'm not too hyped about is we've got the beginnings of an exotic quest starting in the game. I don't know if you heard about any of this.
I know that there is an exotic quest coming, and so, it has been leaked and stuff. Like I'm trying to avoid all leaks. So.
Yeah, so the exotic did leak out. Yeah, what it is, and we knew it was coming in some shape or form. It seems like it has started this week, where basically there is a new quest in the game. It's a fishing rally quest. And basically, I don't think it's specifically tied to the quest, but specifically tied to now the other exotic fish are starting to show up in the game. So now this week
Got it.
we got a new exotic fish that you can go get, and when you get that fish, you can then go deposit it, and it gives you a new. It drops like a broken blade or something, or some just quest item basically, and then you take that item into deep dives, and there's a big thrall hive statues that are in deep dives, and you can go deposit into one of them. So
Oh.
there are two other. So we know there are two other fish, exotic fish, and there are two other statues. So assumingly each week, we will basically it is surprised is another time gated quest, where next week we will get probably another exotic fish. You get that fish, dunk it, take that whatever item it gives you to the next one, take it to the third one the week after that, and assuming that'll then give you this new exotic that is coming. Um,
I did want to.
so we'll have to see.
I did want to mention that deep dives are cool.
Yeah. I like them in I like them in concept. They're like I think it's a little long for
Yeah.
me now we've gotten it opened up all the way. So like but I like a lot of the the concepts and mechanics that are in it. I personally
Yeah.
actually think like they should do this kind of mechanics in something like Salvage, which is the
Yeah.
6-player activity. Like I think incorporating those mechanics, like the sort of roguelite-ish mechanics where you can like choose different abilities to like bump up while you're doing these big activities where you're killing a bunch of stuff super crazy fast and
like
stuff.
having secrets to extend and enhance the activity. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's like my stuff for sure.
Yeah. It's a lot of cool stuff in that activity for sure. I just wish it was not as long as it was.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, applying it to 6-player activity where you have more bodies to mow
Yeah.
shit down helps. But it's a cool idea. And I see Bungie playing with like Hades style mechanics and stuff like that.
Roguelite stuff in general. Yeah, it would be really
and
cool.
I'm into that. And I would love to see more of it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely some cool stuff. And very interested in what other activities we'll see. We'll see post this stuff. But yeah, I think I think that's like all we really got for this week.
I think so.
On Helm to Tower. We'll potentially be back. We could maybe check in and see whatever the story stuff that drops next week. If it's
not, then like when the exotic comes out, we can.
The exotic or solstice will probably line up pretty well when the stuff drops. So we'll definitely be back in the next like weeks or so with another episode. And I think something we can also do is as we get closer to this August thing, another thing we can do in an episode is look back at some of these twabs and soon twids. And maybe they'll give us a twid that kind of recaps maybe some things that we know are coming, because they did talk beyond this, because we know I think they did say not the season that is not the August season starting in August, but the season that starts before, like the season that leads into the final shape. There's going to be like some bigger changes to the core playlists coming. I'm pretty sure they said that in somewhere.
And then we're getting, at that time, we'd be getting the look for group.
Yeah,
LFG stuff,
the in-game LFG stuff. I'd be curious to see some of that stuff and just be reminded of like, oh right, they are definitely still doing a lot of different things in this game in the coming seasons. So we get to like try and refresh on some of that and kind of set the expectations potentially for what we're going to learn in that whatchamacallit in that showcase, and also be fun to just like theorize on like what are things me and you would actually want to be refreshed in this playlist. Like what are things that would get us excited about like updates to the Vanguard strikes, or what the Vanguard ops, or Crucible and Gambit and stuff, right? Like I think that'd be a good topic to maybe talk about at some point in the future as well. Like what would be things we want to see come to this.
What do I want to see out of Gambit?
Yeah. What would us get out of Gambit? Like, has the changes that have already come to like Vanguard ups been actually worthwhile? Yes or no? Like in some ways yes, in some ways no for me, and that'd be stuff to talk about. So that's stuff to look forward to in future episodes from us. But for now, yeah, I think that's it. Again, we this was a little bit off the cuff episode. So we didn't have like a regimented plan. So we just kind of like rambled on a lot about stuff. So hope that's okay. Let us know what you thought, and maybe some of your thoughts on this. Keep it calm, and you don't have to sit here and be like fuck Bungie whatever in our comments or whatever. You don't have to go that hard, please.
I feel like the people that comment on our videos are very nice.
They are generally everyone's been very nice in our comments. We always appreciate you taking the time to watch or listen. So yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys think of kind of what's going on in the circles, and kind of what your vibe check is personally, where you're thinking about Destiny as a game in your life. So yeah, feel free to let us know here on youtube.com/Helm to Tower. That's where you can watch us, or you can check us out on podcast services as well. But yeah, again, we always appreciate everybody checking us out.
Sorry for no video this time. It's my fault.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're just looking at it. I Ken forgot to bring that up. Maybe you somehow are in the cross section of listening to that Nintendo Land episode and why we did not video. But yeah, like Alex said, he was in the process of moving, so we just foregoed video because it was easier and they didn't have to set up all this ridiculous stuff to get video going. So we're just audio for now. So you're just seeing the little Helm to Tower graphic.
We should be back. It should just be this episode. By the next time, I will have moved and we'll be in a new space and everything. So.
New fancy space. Love to see it.
Hell yeah.
And I'll probably try and maybe just like record some random gameplay or something too to like throw in this video version, because it's not just, you're not just looking at a graphic. I guess if you want to check it out on YouTube, but I'm also here. Whatever. At the end of the day, it is a podcast, so you're probably just kind of listening in the background anyway. So I don't think it's hopefully that big of a deal for y'all for just this one episode. But yeah, thanks everybody again. Yeah, for listening, watching, however you're hanging out with us. We always appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.